How you doing, guys? Today we're going to finish up the assembly of the Briggs & Stratton engine. Still waiting for the PTO seal to come, so I'm probably not going to be able to get it started today, but basically I want to get all the assembly done. I did go ahead and bolt the electric starter in place. The lower bolt, which is right there, it's just snugged into place. The big bolt is tightened down so it doesn't flop around. This bolt here is loose because I do have to snake the blower cover between the block and the starter bracket. So we're just going to leave that there. The first thing I want to do is mount the rectifier. Now, I think according to the manual, I think it's supposed to go off of this bolt, but I'm not going to do that. I'm going to use this bolt hole right there, this one right there, and I'm going to make a little bracket with that piece of aluminum that bolts it right here. I will clean off some of the paint right there so it makes the ground contact that it needs, because this is not painted. The back of this bracket is not painted, so this is bare to block, so that's going to ground itself just the way we want. Also, when we put the stator in, the wires for the stator come right down here, so I can bring all the wires right through here, make the connections to the rectifier, and then snake the wires back up into this area. You won't even see it. And then the battery cable for the starter is right here, so I can integrate the two wires that go to the battery. Now, I don't know if I'm going to put the battery in the front of the little rider or in the back. That's to be determined, but at least all those battery connections will be right here. The battery will be grounded to the frame. The engine is grounded then to the frame. So that should make all those good connections. So for right now, let me go ahead. I'm just going to take some measurements. Going to cut this tab off, clean up this piece of aluminum, and get it drilled. And there we go. Just a quick and dirty little bracket to keep the rectifier in a safe place, and all self-contained on the engine. I don't know if I'm going to mount it on top. I might mount it underneath. It depends on how I feel when I bolt it in. I am going to make a little bit of a mark, just lightly dust this with a little bit of white paint to make it look a little better. I'll tape it all off. I did go ahead and use my, see if we can do this with one hand. I went ahead and made sure that we had full continuity between my little bracket and the block, so that way I know the rectifier is grounded if it needs to be. So that's it on that. Next up, let's get the stator in place. Just trying to figure out where I'm going to run the wires for the stator to the rectifier. So this thing right here is the bottom portion of the blower cover to keep the air pressure in where these fins are and then blowing over the bore. But if we look inside, and I don't think I'm going to be able, but right here is where the stator wires run through this plate, and they come out this side of the starter. But the slot, I don't know if you can see it in there. I'm going to try. It's right there. It's so tight, okay? That area is so tight that it actually made some pretty good sized depressions in the, right there. You can see them, pretty good sized depressions in the wire. Now, the wire sheath itself is not cut. It's all still in good shape, but I don't want that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and modify that plate a little bit. I'm just going to take the file and open up that hole a little bit just to give me a little bit more clearance on those wires, because I do want them to come out and kind of hang down in this area right here, so I can make the connection to the rectifier, and then I can kind of stuff the wires up behind the starter and nobody will ever see them. So let me go ahead, let's get that modification done, and let's get the stator and the wires in place. The PTO seal just showed up, so I'm going to go ahead, wipe it off, clean it up, and I'm going to lubricate. Everything is pretty much lubricated because a whole bunch of the assembly lube has leaked out, but I'm going to go ahead and just wipe things up, make sure everything's good and clean, slide the seal in, tap it into place, and we should be all set. And we can go ahead and go on top side and get that flywheel and everything put together. With the PTO seal installed, everything went fine there. I went ahead and we got the stator in place, you know, final. Got the lower blower shield done. I had opened up the hole a little bit for the wires. They're all set. They run just behind the gas tank. I did take a couple crimp connects, made a couple connections from the stator to the rectifier. I went ahead and mounted the rectifier right here, so that way my positive battery cable comes to the starter, as well as the positive, or the cable that goes back to the battery to charge it, is right here, so I can just make a nice clean wiring harness, so to speak. Next up, we're going to go ahead and get the flywheel. Got a brand new soft key, which you always have to replace on a Briggs & Stratton engine. Even if there was a point set up here, you really should get a new soft key for your flywheel, because it's pretty critical for Briggs & Stratton engines to have that. Don't put a steel key in there. So I'm going to go ahead and get that. I got a new washer and I got a new clutch. I'm going to put my clutch tool on it and torque it to the specification in the book, which I still need to look up. Okay, made some progress here. So flywheel's on, torque the starter clutch. It's supposed to be torqued to 60 foot-pounds, but man, that's a lot. The other engine, I sent it to 50 foot-pounds. I haven't had a problem. So this is 50 foot-pounds. Grass screen's in place. Got the armature in place. Air gapped it out to 12 thousandths at the magnet. So that's all set. Spark plugs installed. That's gapped to 30 thousandths as per the book. I got this little black wire is the kill wire that comes over to the throttle kill. So that's all set. It basically just clips into this little wire clip that they have right there. I got to figure out what I'm going to do with this wire. I don't know. I don't really want to clip it off. Or I'm going to have to figure out something. I don't know yet. I haven't gotten there. Air vane diverter is in place. I did check the turns on the main jet to 1.5. Although all these specs are coming right out of the book. Here's the 30 thousandths for the spark plug. Here's the 1.5 turns for the pulse jet carburetor. It's 10 to 14 thousandths. That's in the other part of the book, but I got that to 12, so we're good there. Yeah, I mean, right now I need to go ahead and polish up the blower cover and put the starter handle onto the rope. So let's get that done, and we should be almost there. I figured before I polish the blower cover, let's see if this thing runs, right? So blower cover's on, starter handle's on the rope. I did put a temporary muffler on the motor. You got to run a muffler because I've had it happen where it sucks a gulp of cold air in there and really messes up the exhaust valve. So run it with a muffler. So I got a temporary muffler in place. I had to cannibalize the bolts off the rug engine because I didn't have a set of bolts for it. So, but that's temporarily on. We have fresh 30 weight oil up to the level that it needs to be. We have fresh fuel in the gas tank, and the electric starter's not hooked up. I mean, the electric starter's mounted, but there's no electrical wires to it. We're gonna use the rope start. For tools, I do have a couple here. The big screwdriver is once it gets warmed up, I can do some carburation adjustment. The little one is for the idle screw, which we will deal with at some point in time. And the pliers are for the emergency shut-off. Should this engine run away and it doesn't turn off, I can just I can go ahead and yank the spark plug wire off without getting electrocuted. And we have a little bit of fuel in that can. It's just regular gasoline. And what I'm going to do with that is going to prime the carburetor just a hair, and so that way we can get this thing started as fast as possible, so that that little diaphragm will start to draw fuel up from the tank. All right, I think we're heading towards the moment of truth. Well, we're back in the shop. We had a no spark situation. Now, usually this would send me through the roof and I would go bananas mad, but when I was putting that ignition module on this engine, it just didn't look and feel right, like it's the wrong part. It doesn't look anything like the magnetrons that I have over here on the workbench. These are older ones. But the part number, I checked it like 3 times, cross-referenced as correct for this engine, as well as the replacement part number or the superseded part number, but it's not right. I showed you those 3 wires. You Briggs guys probably are laughing at me right now saying, dude, I could have told you that hours ago. But, you know, I'm not a real Briggs guy, so to speak. So what I'm going to do is I got to get another ignition module because it has no spark. I used my spark tester there. So going to do a little bit of work, swap out that ignition module, and we will get this thing running. All right, I went down into the parts bin down in the basement, and I found an old magnetron ignition module that came off an old 5-horse horizontal shaft motor. So I swapped that in, 12 thousandths clearance. I did have to make a new kill wire, which is right there. Everything appears to be good. I put my spark tester on it and it has spark. So the only other thing we have now is fuel. So I'm going to go ahead, take this thing outside, put a little bit of fuel in the carburetor. We're going to pull the cord and let's see if she fires up. All right, I have some fuel just to dribble down the carburetor to get things juiced up and going. Check the oil, made sure the oil is okay. We had spark, so in theory, I'm just going to dribble a little fuel down the carburetor, set the choke, pull the cord, and hopefully it'll start up fairly easy. It's been 20 minutes. It's been running just like this. I've been varying the RPMs here and there, just to make sure that, you know, it'll throttle up, it'll throttle down. I got the carburetor somewhat adjusted. I still have to put the air cleaner on it, so I'll have to do another adjustment. But what I'm going to do right now is I'll show you that it throttles up and throttles down without any issue, no smoke. And then we'll test the kill switch for the first time. There we go. Wow. I am stoked. That engine seems to run real good. Actually better than the other engine initially. So with that, this particular project has come to a close. I know it was a long one. Thank you so much for all of you sticking in there with me and seeing this engine through. Preliminary first 20-minute startup and run was successful. I did check the output on the rectifier. There is output from the rectifier, but to be honest with you, I don't know how to read my multi-tool, so I got to figure that out. But there is output from the rectifier when the engine is about half RPM to full RPM. So when it's at idle, you can look at that. Oh, look at that little bit of atomization coming out of the carburetor. You know what that means? Horsepower. I'm joking. So I'll need to figure that out, but there is output. It's not like there's no output from the rectifier. I'm not going to run that muffler. I'm going to take the ceramic coated muffler off the rug and swap that onto this engine. I'm going to let this engine fully cool down all the way, retorque the head, put the air cleaner back on it, and then we'll fire up this engine again. Maybe not on video, or not, at least not in this video, and that should be it. It should be a good oil change required, and this thing is ready to rock and roll. Again, thank you guys for sticking in on this project. I know it's a long one. Please like, share, and subscribe. Leave a comment below if you would. And as always, until we start the next project, you have a great day. Thank you. I really appreciate it.